everyone, in this video we are going to be talking about discharging tension in a nervous horse. So we're going to take a look at a horse that I've been working with recently. This is a really interesting case study that we're going to take a look at today. It's a horse that when he's being ridden tends to carry a lot of tension in his body and in his mind. And as a result of that, over the course of the ride, the tension will build and build inside of him, and it'll get to the point where he's carrying so much tension that he becomes very reactive, spooky. He's even bolted a few times. Can be difficult to control, things like that. Generally, the rides start off okay, although not great, and then it builds and builds throughout the ride. And so what we're going to talk about is the importance of releasing the tension as it occurs. So basically what's happening is something will happen that creates a little bit of nervousness or tension in the horse, and it'll never get released or addressed. So it just kind of sits inside of him there. And over the course of the ride, because none of the tension is getting released, it's just building and building up inside of him until eventually he gets to a certain point where he just can't take it anymore. And then it starts to come out in the form of spooking or bolting, or what we would call misbehavior. He's really not trying to misbehave. He's just gotten to the point where he needs to release his tension. Somehow he can't hold it in anymore, and he doesn't know how, and that's how it comes out. So what we needed to do with this horse was go way back to the beginning and figure out where the tension was first starting to occur. And for this horse, and for a lot of horses, that meant going all the way back to groundwork, working with him on the ground, developing a better communication with him, helping him to understand what was expected of him, and building up a partnership with him on the ground first, doing things like in-hand work, lunging, a little bit of liberty work, all of that to start the communication and the partnership with him. And then from there, getting into the under saddle work, we actually had to go back and get him comfortable being bridled and saddled again, because even in those things, he was already starting to build up tension. And in order to prevent him from getting to that point where he became super reactive, we need to find those early tension areas and find ways to release that tension so that it's not there anymore, and then he's not building up to that point where he becomes reactive. So we went back to bridling and saddling and helped him to get more comfortable with that. And then even standing at the mounting block was something that was super stressful for him. So we worked through that as well. So, but now in this video, we're going to get to the point where I'm actually riding him. And I'm going to show you, it's a super short clip, so it might not look like a lot is happening, but it's actually really cool and really profound, the transformation that happens in this horse if you pay attention. So at this point now, I'm riding the horse, and he's still carrying a lot of tension when he's under saddle. And one of the ways that I can tell that is that he doesn't like to stand still. And the reason for that is because he's got so much anxiety in his body and tension in his body that he feels like he needs to move. So remember, when horses feel nervous, their natural instincts are fight, flight, or freeze. And in this case, the horse is showing a very strong flight response. And that's why it's hard for him to stand still for me when I'm on his back, because he feels like he needs to move in order to express that flight response. He's not trying to be naughty. He's not trying to, just do whatever he wants or not listen to me. It's really just his flight instincts kicking in and him feeling like he needs to move in order to get to a place where he can be safer. And in this case, for this horse, it's also a way of him discharging some of that nervous energy that is building up inside of his body. So it's not something that I want to totally discourage or shut down, because I want that energy to be able to come out in a way that's going to be safe for both of us, and also in a way that's going to lead us to a more calm place of being and a place where we can be more productive. So I need to find ways to allow him to discharge that nervous energy in a safe way, of course, but in a way that I'm not going to cause him to just shut down and hold everything inside of him until he gets to the point where he can't hold it anymore. And then that's when it's going to come out in unexpected ways, spooking, strong reactions, bolting, things like that. A lot of times when people say, the horse spooked or exploded or whatever out of nowhere, it actually didn't really come out of nowhere. It was building up for quite some time, but the signs were so subtle that maybe you didn't notice, but they were there. And that tension was building and building and building, and eventually it gets to a point where the horse can't contain it anymore, and then it comes out in a very strong or negative way. So we need to find ways to release that tension and discharge that nervous energy in a safe, productive way. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at the video now, keeping all of that in mind. So in this video, we're going to be talking about discharging tension in a nervous horse. The video quality is not super great, so I apologize for that. But I did want to share it because it's a really super cool transformation in this horse. So right now I'm just walking him around a little bit, and then I'm going to ask him to stand. And this is where this horse really struggles. He feels like he can't stand still. So you'll see there he's in a pretty alert state, high head, ears back. It's hard to see in the video, but he's going into a little bit of a freeze state. Now here you'll see some of that moving. So you see him tossing his head a little bit, you see him moving around a little bit, and all I'm doing is quietly sitting there and just gently asking him to come to a halt again. And he's telling me that he doesn't feel comfortable standing still right now. He feels like he needs to move and get out of here to keep himself safe. So I'm going to allow him to move a little bit, because I want to be able to discharge that nervous energy. I don't want it to build up. So again, he's moving around a little bit, not wanting to stand still. Again, backing up, moving his head around, just not feeling like he can stand. Moving a little bit sideways. So I'm going to allow him to move again to discharge some of that nervous energy. See some head tossing there. Moving around, shaking his head, pawing. This is something that this horse does quite a bit, or used to do. When you would ask him to stand still, he would do quite a bit of pawing. I'm just not able to relax and not able to stand still. Okay, so this is a session later on, but first I want to talk a little bit more about that video that we just saw. Okay, so again, it might not have looked like a lot was really going on in that video, but you need to really pay attention to see everything that's happening. So the horse doesn't feel comfortable. He doesn't feel like he can stand still. So when I ask him to stand still, The first time he went into kind of a state of freeze where he was a little bit shut down, very rigid in his body, not moving, his ears weren't moving, he wasn't blinking, just carrying a lot of tension. So that's not a place where we want him to be either, because that means that nervousness is building up inside of him. So I allowed him to walk a little bit more. And then we went back to working on standing still. And now the energy was starting to come out, which is a good thing. We want that tension and that nervousness to come out. So when I asked him to stand still, he wasn't able to. He would back up, he would shake sideways, toss his head, paw. All those different things are his way of expressing his flight response. Now, what's important is that I need to allow him to express those nervous feelings. I need to allow that energy to come out. If I were to just force him to stand still or get after him and make him stand still, or maybe get after him or punish him for pawing, which a lot of people do, or shaking his head, or, maybe just put a stronger bit on him to force him to stand still, whatever. If I forced him to stand still when he had all that nervous energy in him, it would end up, he would either completely shut down, or that tension would just keep building and building up inside of him, and then eventually it would get to the place where it comes out. It always comes out eventually, so it's better for it to come out in a way that's safe and controlled, rather than allowing it to build up to the point where the horse is spooking, reactive, bolting, all things like that, where he's just gotten to the point where he can't contain his nervousness anymore, and he just feels like he's got to get the heck out of there. So again, it's super important to understand that he's not trying to misbehave. He's just responding to his instincts that are telling him that he's not safe. So by allowing him to express himself a little bit, that actually allowed him to realize that he really was okay, and things weren't as bad as he thought they were, and he was able to come back down to a place of more relaxation. So by allowing him to discharge that tension each step of the way, it didn't build up like it used to do before. And he actually started to come down from it and be able to relax, and start to realize that he wasn't in as much danger as he thought he was. So we're going to take a look now at, this is another session. This is actually only a few sessions later. At this point, I'm only working with this horse one time a week. So the change happened really, really quickly once he realized that he was okay, and that we gave him that opportunity to express his feelings and discharge that energy as it came up instead of allowing it to build. So this is a few sessions later. We're able to start to add a little bit of speed in the trot here without him getting nervous. That was one thing that would really bother him, is the more speed you would add, the more tension would build up. So at this point now, I'm able to comfortably put him into a little bit of a trot. And then we're going to come down from the trot, and I'm going to ask him to stand still. And you can see the difference in the horse already here. He's able to stand quietly, his head is much lower, there's more relaxation in his body. I know the video quality is not great, but I think it's clear enough that you can see the difference. And then we're able to calmly walk off again. So no moving around, no pawing, no head shaking, none of that stuff that we were having before. And then we're going to come around here. We're right over by the open door right now, which is also something that would create a lot of nervous energy in him. And again, we're able to stand quietly. He's soft, he's relaxed. He's looking around a little bit, but in a way that's very comfortable and relaxed, not in a nervous way. He takes a little bit of a step there, kind of looking towards the door, but I'm able to just quietly bring him back down to a stop. You can see him licking and chewing there. He's quiet in his body, soft in his body, looking around, but in a quiet, attentive way, not in a nervous, panicked way like he would before. Again, a little bit of moving, but he's able to come right back down, and then you can see some licking and chewing again there. So I think you can see that there's definitely a difference in the horse from the first video to the second video. And actually, now at this point in time, I'm able to walk, trot, and canter him. And he stands completely quiet, no problem. Very relaxed horse, completely different horse than when we started with just a few months ago. And really only working with him once a week, so it's really hasn't been that many sessions, and he's made a complete transformation. So I think that's really cool to see. It's one of my favorite parts of training, is just seeing how much more comfortable the horses get and more confident they get in themselves. It's really cool. And it's because I was willing to allow him to express himself. I was willing to listen to him, not push him past his comfort level, and just take each thing one step at a time and find ways to release that tension without allowing it to build up inside of him, and without pushing him to the point where he was so nervous that he felt like he had to become super reactive. Now, one thing I do want to say is that when I was riding him the first couple sessions, you really need to be paying attention to the horse and reading their energy. If I felt like his energy was continuing to build and build to a point where he was going to become unsafe, or he was just mentally getting to the point where he wasn't in a good place anymore, I probably would have gotten off of him and done some more groundwork and built up his confidence a little bit more on the ground. But I could tell that even though he was moving and doing things that are often seen as negative, such as head shaking and pawing, I could tell that he was actually releasing energy, and as he was doing those things, his energy level was coming down. So that's why I felt confident in allowing him to do those things. I was never took it to the point where I felt like he was going to become dangerous or super reactive or anything like that. So you definitely need to be able to read your horse's energy level, really pay attention to what they're telling you, and really make sure that you stay in an area where they're able to come to a place where they're feeling more comfortable and more confident. Because the point, of course, is to build up their confidence and not to just force them to do what it is that we're asking them. So it's not about, the end goal of being able to walk, trot, and canter him. It's about just getting him more comfortable in the moment that we're in, whatever that is. So I hope you found that as interesting as I did, and I hope that helps you to kind of think about some things in a little bit different perspective. And if you are having any issues with your horse where you would maybe classify it as them misbehaving or being naughty, maybe think about it in a little bit different perspective and try and figure out what your horse is trying to tell you through their behavior. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. I'd love to hear from you.